to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris from Leading the Way even, and I'm here with my amazing guest. So excited to have you here, Blaz Marolt. Blaz, thank you so much for being on Leading the Way.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and I want to tell you why I'm so excited, listeners. So let me tell you a little bit about my amazing guest. He is a U.S. Military Academy West Point graduate. Thank you for your service, sir. He finished the
Thank
Ranger
you.
School the following year. After leaving the service, he's led giant teams from anywhere from 4, which isn't giant, to 120, which is considerable, in many different industries. And his journey has started with regional operations, moving to something where he's responsible for 8 countries and the chief of staff for a career coaching company. Now, currently, he's serving other leaders, focusing on coaching new managers. So, Blaz, so great to have you here and really excited for our discussion today.
Thank you. Yeah, again, thank you for having me, and I'm super excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing we talked a little bit before we went on is you mentioned you had a situation, a story about how a single person really sort of destroyed your team, if I remember right, and they'd been working that
Yes.
for more than a year. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so it was when I was the regional operations director for 8 countries, and kind of like, let me probably back up a story just for a few months.
Yeah.
I became head of operations for Slovenia,
Mm.
for a food delivery company, pretty much. And then we had such great success that after 6 months, I got promoted to the regional position.
Uh,
And we already, with my previous boss, we started working on, hey, what do you want from a regional team? Because the company, the food delivery company in that area was like pretty much really young. We just started, and what kind of a culture and everything that we wanted to do. And after a year, we actually had filled like 90% of our positions with the actual team that we really enjoyed. We had a great culture and everything else. And then all of a sudden, my boss gave notice, and pretty much he was gone within 1 month, right?
wow.
And yeah, and he was replaced by a person that everybody said, like, he's amazing, he's a really go-getter, and yada yada yada, all of the amazing things that people have to say when somebody gets into like this really high position.
Sure.
And it turns out that this person, well, yeah, he destroyed the whole team pretty much
Oh,
within the first pretty much a few months.
wow.
So of course, obviously, I left.
Yeah.
And then pretty much none of, maybe one person right now is on the team still, and that's
Wow.
from a team of like 20 people. And everybody else, everybody pretty much just left because the person was first a micromanager and
Mm,
what you pretty much call a dominant person, like an authoritarian,
right.
that just knew exactly what he wanted, and he was just destroying the whole team. And yeah, and the last update to it is, so the company actually left Slovenia, so where I started,
Wow.
they left the market. Yeah, I know we didn't talk about this before because like it just happened like a couple of months ago,
Wow.
and it's probably gonna go downhill in all of the other 7 countries as well, because I just don't see how they're gonna be doing it, and this is all because of this one person.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a story on the sort of negative side of how one person can make the difference, like in the wrong
Yeah,
way. And
yeah,
I mean, not just the team leaving, because sometimes folks look at the team being replaceable. Well, we can just hire someone else, but literally leaving the market.
yeah.
And even if you are rebuilding the team and if it's time to swap, I mean, that expense, just the dollar expense, euro expense is considerable, right? It's
Hmm.
it's like half of a salary and then time and everything else. So that's just
Yeah.
devastating. Did that motivate you to look at different styles of leadership or do things different?
Yeah, so for me first, the first thing that I did, I took a little bit of a break because
Yeah.
at that point, like I was legitimately in burnout because
Yeah.
I did try a lot to, you know, at that point I would say like to kind of like defend my job and my position and stuff.
Okay.
And then, I just got into burnout and I was like, I need to change something. And it kind of got me thinking like what I really want to do, and I wanted to pivot, and I pivoted pretty much into the coaching area. And what you kind of said before, I was a chief of staff for a career coaching company.
Mm.
And then I pivoted into my own leadership company. But what it got me really thinking was specifically about neuroscience and everything, and like how these people can actually come to this position, right? It's
Yeah.
like, because even when you said it, it was like it's half of the person's salary that it takes them to replace it.
Right.
But in essence, for this company, it was millions of euros of loss just
Yeah.
because of this one person.
Wow.
And leaving the market position, so in Slovenia, and knowing that when I was there, in the rest of the 7 countries, we had a leading market position in at least 3 or 4 of them. And now I can guarantee you, I know because of the numbers,
Yeah.
in none of the countries, actually, the company is a market leader. They're
Right.
getting blown out by everybody else.
Wow.
That person has gotten like he got fired in a nicer way. He got moved into a different position.
Yeah.
But what I think is going to happen is the company's toast in that area, because they're never going to be able to recover with everything
Wow.
else. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's interesting you say that too. There's a lot of leaders, um, sometimes older generation, sometimes younger generation, but they just only know what they know from their family of origin, right? And they don't
Yeah.
want to be challenged on, just like parenting. You don't want to be challenged on, hey, I'm a perfect parent. What do you mean? Don't challenge that. It triggers people.
Exactly.
Same
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
like leaders, it seems like as well, right? That
Yeah.
and they're just going to be closed-minded and it's my way or the highway and I'm right and
Yeah.
you're wrong. And that's exhausting, right? For the leader and everyone around them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's more exhausting for everybody around them, because they are who they are from, like you said, from the past and everything, and they're just used to living with it, right?
Yeah.
And then for, let's say, for me, it's exhausting mentally, physically, like, and then you get into a burnout. They don't, because they're just the way they are. They're
Mm,
usually, unfortunately, they're getting fueled from the situation. Like, my
yeah.
boss loved that I was in that stressed state. Like, you could
Oh,
see it in his face, in his eyes, that he enjoyed it. Right? He
weird.
enjoyed demolishing me. How horrible was I doing? And
Right.
a couple of months before, I was pretty much a superstar,
Yeah.
and you could just see it. And one of the interesting things that I saw, like, in one of the posts, and I actually posted this on LinkedIn as well, was the PIPs, performance improvement plans.
Yeah.
He put the whole all like 15 of us on a performance improvement plan,
Wow.
right? Yeah, and they
Wow.
don't work
No,
because
no,
it
no.
destroys you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and I know both from the neuroscience and that, like, this punishment reward stuff, maybe you'll
Yeah.
build compliance, but that's about it. You're not going to build resilience. You're not going to turn
No.
the person around. Yeah,
No.
and I'm a little bit
Yeah.
laughing because here you are, you're an Army Ranger, a West Point grad. You've seen some
Yeah.
and dealt with some tough stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for you to say like this leader destroys things and not being able to adopt and do all the things that you'd have to do as an Army
Yeah.
Ranger is super telling,
Yeah.
right? We're not talking about someone that hasn't
Yeah.
had that experience and maybe doesn't have that resilience and toughness. Like you've got that, and
Yeah.
still, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this kind of like talks into when we were talking about, the neuroscience part. Like,
Yeah.
this person knew how to trigger my deepest fears. And me
Right.
being in the military and stuff, like, yeah, like you said, I'm resilient.
Right.
But, like, Chris, it was the most telling thing is, like, he knew exactly what buttons to push so that I would get into that freeze mode, terrified mode,
Yeah.
that I would pretty much just be compliant right away. And then here you see, like, me, a tough guy, let's say a tough guy,
Yeah.
being in the army, being ranger and stuff, and like pretty much cowering to this person who is a nobody, pretty much to me, or
Right.
who could never even hold a rifle or anything like that.
Right.
And this is how they then destroy you, like through using unknowingly neuroscience principles
Right.
on how to make you that you fear for pretty much your life at that point.
Yeah. Boy, that's just gross. I'm so sorry that
Yeah.
happened. But I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it's one of those blessings in disguise because you probably wouldn't have left. You probably wouldn't be able to be a coach for
Yeah.
others and serve the world that way, right? It's
I
weird
am
poetically
happy
how
that it
these things
happened. Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. I mean, like, because like I was working 12 to 16 hours a day. Like,
Mm,
I thought, I was doing something amazing and stuff, but like in the end, I was miserable inside.
right.
And because this happened, it legitimately made me push myself to like, what do I even want? I
Yeah.
was in burnout, my brain wasn't working. And that's
Right.
like, at least for me, that was the worst thing that happened. Like I couldn't think. And
Mhm.
for a person, I'm a leader, pretty much managing people.
Right.
It's like if my brain doesn't work, like I have no value whatsoever in anything apart from doing some manual work.
Right.
And that scared the living but Jesus out of me.
Sure.
And it was like, I need to switch stuff. Like I can't do it anymore. I
Yeah.
want to live my, of course, personal life, but also help other people. And this is how I kind of came into the coaching space.
Love it. Love it. And we talked a little bit before too about thinking and for folks listening, a basic principle in neuroscience is when someone's stressed out in fight, flight, or freeze, that's all they've got. It's not fight, flight, freeze, and reason and get over it. I mean, that's it. And you literally can't access the upper part of your cortex where problem solving and imagination and all those amazing things happen. It's literally
Yep.
turned off like a light switch turned off. The light's not coming on. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks don't realize that is when we're under that much stress, or there's a stressful event for whatever reason that our body takes it in that way, we're in fight, flight, freeze. That's it.
Yep. Exactly.
And other thing though you talked about that was really interesting. You mentioned that you take breaks to think. Like I need to get out of the office for a couple hours, out
Yeah.
of that fight, flight, freeze environment, if that's what's
Yeah.
going on, to be able to think. Can you talk more about that approach that you use?
Yeah. So pretty much, so as, as you definitely know, right, when we get into our prefrontal cortex or our thinking brain,
Yeah.
that it legitimately takes a lot of energy from our brain, and our brain doesn't want to go there. Our brain loves to be lazy,
Right.
and it loves to just say, "Hey, I know what I'm doing. Let's just do it like we did it all every single time," right?
Right.
And the way you can get to this to that part of the brain, you need to be calm, relaxed, and do well. At least for me, it's a physical activity.
Hmm.
So when I have, let's say, in my previous job or even now, I need to think about something. It's either a new program or an approach to the client, what I can help him or her in a specific situation. Great. I'm just gonna close my laptop and I'm gonna go into the forest, which is like 50 meters away from me, and I'm just gonna
Nice.
walk
Nice.
and just think and let my brain just wander around
Yeah.
because I know it's working in the background. I
Right.
just can't access it, and eventually I'm gonna get a solution or not. It really depends. But what I did with this is I've kind of almost downloaded the brain's processing power, that what it wanted to resolve, even maybe let's say before I can actually get to this situation or to
Mm.
what I even want to think. And then I get a probably solution two or three, which
Yeah.
just does that. Yeah. And for me, that's walking and just listening to the birds, to the stream, which we have again here 10 meters away from my apartment, and which is amazing. Yeah.
It's so important you bring up you know different practices and cultures and worldviews look at it. The Hindus might call it empty presence or meditation. The brain scientists will talk about like you can be in your cortex. It's
Yeah.
amazing how our brains can solve things if we get the heck out of our own way, right?
Oh my
And-
God. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it can be tricky to be still in our culture of the scroll and needing the dopamine
Yeah.
hit of the next like on our social media post or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
when you get that stillness, like it's very interesting how the brain, or some might call it spirit of the universe. I don't really care, but it just shows up like,
Yeah.
boop, here's the solution. Boop, try this. Like, whoa. But
It,
when we're stressed out, we can't get there and we stay in this like cycle, I think as you said so well, of just your brain likes to
yeah.
be lazy. It's
Yeah.
conserving energy because it doesn't have that
Exactly.
much to play with. And it's like in survival mode. Like, dude, I want another hit. I want something different. Like greatest hit. I don't mean dopamine hit. I want something different for my life and a different outcome. You have to
Yeah.
literally like stop to get that to
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
And the worst part of this is, right, I was, in my previous job as a chief of staff for a career coaching company, I had the same issue. It was like I
Mm,
was in charge of all of the strategic projects. So the company wanted to get from like around $1 million to 10 million in 3-4 years.
mm,
And they brought me as an operations guy, like with the vision and stuff.
right.
And I told them, I need to think like these projects that I'm doing, they're not gonna be um, I'm not going to finish them within a week, a month or so. Like I have to
Right.
think about 12 months, 24 months in advance. And
Right.
I had to start doing it now. And the way I can do it is I need time to think.
Yeah.
And the worst thing was, right, and this is how we kind of came into this conversation, was when I told my boss, I was like, hey, I need to think. I'm gone for 2 hours. I'm going to go on a walk. And everyone was like, how can you do that? You're
Right.
you're working now. I'm like, yes, I'm working when I'm walking because
Right.
that's my most effective time.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get into it because it was like, hey, Blash, what have you done for these 5 projects? Like nothing.
Right.
They're due in like 24 months. It's not like I have to think through them. I need
Right.
time to think. I
Right.
can't be in a meeting with you for 4 hours and then you expect me to think about this because my brain is fried.
Sure.
I need that thinking power pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah. And well, in that example, you're talking about a 10x or more growth, you're going to have to do something different as a company, right? Doing the
exactly.
same thing probably won't get there. Maybe you'll get lucky and the market's really excited about you and you grow 10x, but
Exactly. Yeah.
generally you have to think differently. And,
Yeah.
dare I say, talk to customers. That's often missed too, right? We get all internal in
Yeah.
our company and we don't talk to our end customer at all. And then we're surprised that the
Yep.
outcome is not what we wanted because they're not
Yep.
buying it.
Yeah.
And I'm only
And
laughing
you know,
because it happens again and again, at least in corporate America, and it sounds like
yeah.
around the world. It's just we get locked in this group think and don't think. Um,
And yeah. And it's a really unfortunate thing, right? Because you have like great thinkers in
yeah,
your companies,
right,
but you don't allow them to shine just
right,
because for us is the current, like you already said, like doom scrolling and all of that, but like also people just expect you to do stuff. They expect you to have stuff on your calendar because when, of course, your boss comes in and checks your calendar, hey, you have to have 40 hours completely booked. And that's
right,
the worst thing ever.
yeah,
Like, God forbid you had like learning time, thinking time there because, and this
right,
is what happened to me, right? It was like, why do you have this there for like every day for an hour? I'm like, so for me to learn something new to, oh, we're just going to have a meeting at that point because you're not doing anything. I was like, thanks. Right. And so that time was kind of like almost a meme for me. I had it every day for like a year. And I think I used it 3 times
yeah,
because everything else, like it was more important,
yeah,
which is a sad thing because they didn't use my full potential. And I know
right,
that multiple companies are not using their people's potential just because of that, because they think, hey, you just need to do. And they just think about, again, KPIs and all of that stuff just right now, every quarter,
yeah,
every month that it needs to happen. And nobody thinks about the long term, like 2, 3, 4 years in advance.
right. No, it's so true. And I do see some well-intentioned good activity in terms of including wellness post-COVID and all that. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
start for sure.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. A lot of those approaches are, we'll just do a half-hour session every quarter, and that will give people wellness, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or we'll have a seminar on something, and everyone will go to it and come back. And it's a good start. I don't want to shut that down. At
It
least it's
is.
moving in the right direction, but it's not even close to engaging the brilliance of the team you already have, right? And
Yeah.
the other part of that that's interesting to me, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective, is there can be this belief that we need another tool or another platform or a consulting group to come in, right?
Oh,
Instead
yeah.
of leveraging
Always.
what you already have
Yeah.
to go. I don't know if you've seen that in your world as well.
I mean, it always is, and I think that like that. Hey, we need another tool or a consulting company and stuff like that. It's almost a means to an end, so that people can say like, hey, they're the experts, and then they
Right,
they tell us what we need to do,
right,
and then we're gonna do it, and poof, it's gonna work, which is
right,
not the case.
right.
And there's one extra thing that you said before was like, right, we don't listen to our customers, and in
Yeah.
this case, if you want wellness, your customers are your employees,
Yes.
those in the front lines. You need to listen to them, what they want. They maybe
Right.
not don't want a seminar because, hey, I just don't want, let's say, an introvert. I don't
Yeah.
want to spend my whole day with 15 other people and telling kumbaya stories like and
Right.
being vulnerable and stuff. I don't want to do that
Right.
because I'm not comfortable. Maybe I need, a spa day or just leave me alone for a day and I'm gonna do it by myself.
Yeah.
But usually we just don't think and don't allow people to voice their own opinions.
Yeah.
And if they do voice them, hey, I just need maybe a mental health day off or something like that.
Right.
You as a boss, if of course we look at the dominant boss was like, no, that doesn't work for me, so it won't
Right.
work for you. Well,
Right.
great.
Right.
And I've seen that happen a lot of the times, right? So it's unfortunate because
Yeah.
everybody is different and everybody has their own way on how to unwind, how to be better. We just have to listen to them,
Yeah.
but we
It's
don't
so
usually.
true. And I wonder sometimes, is it a fear thing? Like, this isn't about folks having a vacation at your work. I have the belief, and I might be wrong, I'm probably wrong partially, is I believe people really do want to be productive. And if they're not being productive, there's something in their way that they might not even be aware of.
Yeah,
And there's exceptions, right? But
yeah,
99.99%, I think, of folks actually really want to be productive. And if they're
yeah,
not showing up that way, like, it's kind of a leader's job to figure out, okay, what is that thing or
exactly.
things to help them succeed? Because I don't think, I mean, yes, it'd be great to live in the Caribbean or something and be a millionaire for a month, but after
Yeah,
that, we're going to want to be productive and do something. Most of us.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, 100% right. And this is where it kind of comes also like to our like strange way of thinking. And this is, I think, more prevalent in the US and let's say in Europe where I am now,
Sure.
is like you need to work all day, every day.
Right.
Like in the US, it's like 12-hour work days or even more, right? And this
Yeah.
is what we then say it's productive. You have to not, well, now it's a remote workspace at some of the companies, right? But before it was like, hey, you need to come in before your boss, and usually you're going to leave after your boss so that they can see that you're being productive. But
Right.
usually that time is not productive. You
Right.
can't, yeah, physically and mentally, you cannot work probably more than 6 actual productive hours a day.
Right.
And this is still one of the things that even in the companies that I work with, and even individuals, is that kind of notion that I don't know who did this. Like I actually have to probably research this. Who told us and who ingrained it in our brains that we can work for 12 hours, like every day, all day,
Right.
without burning out?
Yeah.
And you don't do it like because legitimately, I think your brain can work like 6 hours max, and even
Yeah.
that's a stretch. You
Agree.
need breaks in between,
Right.
and that's just a sad thing because this is why we're not productive. This is
Yeah.
why you're gonna see people just putting the like just oh what's the word I forgot in English, like just move the mouse a little bit so that people can see on Teams or stuff like on
Right.
Slack that they're green,
Right.
right?
Yep. Totally.
And that you won't be working, but because you
No.
can't anymore.
No. It's so well said. I mean, I don't know the source of it either. I get curious if it was, old farming stuff where you would work noon to night, but that was your life too.
Yep.
It wasn't just a
Yeah,
job. Or maybe it's the old supply chain. I'm not supply chain. Uh, Turn of the century, industrial revolution,
yeah,
working on the manufacturing line mindset.
yeah,
But that's long gone. Like, most of us are not a farming community for better or for worse, or
mhm,
not, Laverne and Shirley putting bottle caps on. Uh,
yeah,
thank goodness.
yeah,
But you're right. We
yeah,
treat it that way, and like more is better. And versus looking at the productivity, which is probably like dropping, right? Adversely compared to, just work 12 hours just because I said
yeah,
so. The
yeah,
productivity
exactly.
probably goes to zero. The engagement certainly goes to zero. The life work balance goes to zero. It's not
Yeah,
sustainable, right?
no, I
Yeah.
mean, just let's say as an example for like whoever's listening here, like it who's in a corporate environment stuff, just when you have a day that you have like 6 or 7 hours of meetings back to
Oof.
back, and I had those, right? I had like I think
Yeah.
my record is 13 back to back meetings, and I think
Wow.
I was like around 9 hours because we had like 30-minute meetings. Just compare yourself in your brain when you started and when you finish.
Mush.
Your brain is done. Yeah, much exactly. Like you can't do anything.
Right.
And this is what people then tend to see like, hey, it's productive if you have so many meetings. No, it's not.
Right. Right. It's collaborative if we get 40 people in a room. Not
Oh,
usually.
that is always amazing when you have like 10 people just wondering, or even 20, why am I even here?
Right.
Like, am I in the wrong place?
Right.
And then you have usually 2 or 3 people that are being the dominant ones that are just the cream of the crop that need to speak.
Right.
And then
Holding
everybody's
stage.
like, yeah, exactly, because their words are so important that they need to explain everything in such a great prose, detail, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's like, why am I here? Why do I
Right.
need to be here spending 2, 3 hours with you guys? Because this could be said in an email
Yeah.
or a Slack.
Million percent.
That's that.
Right. Or, just adding on to that. I mean, a lot of these meetings that I've seen and experienced, it's people are reading each other their notes in PowerPoint, right? It's
Exactly.
it's the reading of the PowerPoints. I've been at multiple companies, so if folks look at my resume, don't try to point at any one of them because it's happened at all of them where that was
Yeah.
considered useful. Like once a month, all the senior leaders would get together and we literally read each other PowerPoints about how we were doing.
Yeah.
And that was a norm. I got actually in trouble for questioning it,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
right? I made that mistake.
oh
Or maybe it wasn't a mistake, but and I get it. Like you want to figure out how to work together. Like the problem you're trying to solve is we want to stay in touch on these things and figure out how to work with
yeah.
each other. But reading PowerPoints and looking at KPIs is not going to do that.
No,
Um, there's other ways
it's
to accomplish that goal, which is an important goal for sure.
yeah.
But let me show you my slide deck and tell you three things that I want to brag about and three things that I think are wrong that are heavily scripted. So I look good.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the game that's being played, right?
Yeah. Or let's say, when you said before, it actually like really when you said like that when you question stuff like, hey,
Right.
why are we here?
Right.
Oh, like I made that mistake like several times over. And it's like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Well, it was like, hey, Blaz, you don't understand, like in this case, marketing, what we're doing. And I'm like, so why are we then here? If you're
Right.
updating me, I can read the PowerPoint slide and we don't need this meeting.
Right.
I need to understand it.
Right.
And of course, that was coming from a person from that previous company that I told you about. Was the person who was never in at that point Slovenia and was telling us what the best market strategy is, and we're all
Wow.
telling that her it doesn't work.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's epically a big mistake. Even if it's not even within a country, right? You're marketing
yeah,
to a different class of people. I've seen that in
yeah,
the C-suite where a marketing company they've done all the research. We'll talk about good actors in the marketing space that have done the research
yeah,
and the work and they
yeah.
really know the customer and they've done all the stuff and they've done case studies. And then they come with a plan to the senior leadership and they say
Mhm.
they don't like it. And I was at one of these, it was actually poetically one of the best I've ever seen. And I was really proud of the person presenting. They said, well, they swore, which maybe they shouldn't have. They said, I don't effing care if you don't believe you're not the one buying it. And it went silent.
Yeah.
And then the CEO in this case
Yeah,
was smart enough to go, you're right.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
I'm not it. And in this case, the product was for single moms, low income, none of which these men
Mhm.
in the room were or had even any relationship to, or even knew
Yeah.
what their wants and needs were. And they let it go. It was actually one of the more successful rollouts ever. This was a toothpaste rollout in the 70s for kids. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it went gangbusters. It was the thing where you used to put the things in your mouth and they turned them different colors and all of that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
So people could self-diagnose, are your kids brushing or not, and all that stuff. And
yeah.
it almost got shut down because this executive went, I don't get it, I don't like it. I'm like, well, so what?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
with respect, right? You are the executive, but still, you're
yeah.
not selling to yourself in that case.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was kind of like, the person was from Romania and we
Mm,
were from Slovenia. So that was like, the first 6 months when I was the head of operations.
yeah,
And they were like, TV is king. If we put everything on TV, like everybody's going to buy. And this was a food delivery company.
yeah,
Well, guess what? Our target audience was 18 to like 55 or something like that, right? Because those are the people that usually buy those food delivery stuff. Well, guess
sure.
what? In Slovenia, there's one big trait that Romania doesn't have. In Slovenia, we don't have TVs, or if we do have TVs, we
Uh,
don't watch TV. We watch Netflix, whatever cool new app we have, or stuff like that, or
yeah,
YouTube,
yeah,
right?
right.
Well, guess what? We weren't there. We were
Wow.
only, in on TVs, probably during kids commercials or something like that, because it was the cheapest one. And guess
Uh,
what? Kids don't buy this stuff. The
nope.
parents that or people that watch those are, I mean, sad to say, but they're usually minimum wage people, and they don't have the money to buy that. You need
Sure.
white collar workers from big companies, pretty much, and that they get paid really well to order that stuff, because for us, time is money, pretty much. And I don't want to cook for an hour. I want to
Yeah.
order it because it's going to save me the time.
Right.
And apparently it was working in, the other markets. It wasn't working in Slovenia. And we spent, and Slovenia, for people that don't know, it's only 2 million people. And we
Right.
spent like above 1 million euros for
Wow.
that campaign that
Wow.
completely washed out. It didn't move. Like, if I could tell you it moved the needle, it didn't. Like, there was
Wow.
no increase,
That's
right?
crazy.
And
Like that's like equivalent of 50 cents or 50, half a euro for every single.
yeah,
That's a
exactly.
huge budget. Wow.
It was. And we told them, go on radio go there, we can do it way cheaper.
Yeah.
But then this was another fallacy was, well, we did a market research, and the company that we were doing the market research told us TV is going to have the biggest audience, right? You know what the catch was? The same
That.
company that did the market research was we were we were hiring to sell us the TV rights. So they were doing their own market research and telling us, please give us more money to
Oh, it's
actually
gross.
have that. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, so that was a huge waste of money.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I want to,
Yeah.
we could commiserate probably for hours on all the exciting things about this. And actually,
Oh
it's
yeah.
the reason I wrote my book about boost your bullshit resilience at work, because everyone has a BS work story. But
Yeah,
I know you're
exactly.
incredibly skilled executive coach and want to change
Yeah.
this so it doesn't occur. So,
Mhm.
tell me more a little bit about your practice and the kind of things you
Yeah.
seek to do in the companies you serve.
Yeah. So as I told you, like I'm a leadership coach, and currently my biggest thing that I want to do is I see that a lot of new managers or individual contributors that want to become managers don't have the service of coaches like large, big executives have.
Yeah.
And usually in these years, it's your formative years as a leader, and you need to start working on your leadership skills as fast as possible.
Right.
Because when you get into a pattern, like what we're talking about, neuroscience in the brain, it's so established that it's hard to break those chains, kind of like what you have, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I really want to do. And this is kind of like my passion is to help those people that they're going to spread, good leadership practices that
100%.
we're not going to be only looking at, let's say, KPIs and looking at every other month and just, it's sometimes also arbitrary KPIs. Oh, we
Right.
want to grow 100%. And if we grow only 80 or 70%, then it's a whole panic because we didn't meet the deadlines or stupid KPIs that we set for ourselves.
Right.
I was part of those as well, and in my previous companies as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
but this is kind of the thing that I really want to do, and I really want to spread, right? Uh, I also then, of course, work with companies, and a lot of times where I work with companies are either middle management
Hmm.
or also sometimes lower manager positions, but somehow it just ended up that hey, I'm doing middle management, department heads, and all of that stuff, and I'm just teaching them basics of leadership, how to communicate with yourself, how to make sure that your team is empowered, and how to communicate with every individual from your team, because you have a team, it's a
Mm.
different, I would say, persona, and then every single person is also a different persona, and you have to lead them in a different way to get the most out of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and this is what I'm pretty much doing at the moment, and what I really want to change, and hopefully in like the next 30, 40 years, when I'm probably not retired, but like, just like 70, 80 years old,
Right.
is that people are going to start looking at leadership and the way we view companies differently.
Yeah.
That we're not just going to be caring about, hey, you gave me $1,000 per customer or something, or KPIs, but we're also going to be looking at you're an amazing leader, you've built an amazing team, and that's one of the big new KPIs that you know how to serve first the customers and your team. And
Yeah.
that's what I really want, like let's say my legacy be in 30, 40 years, or when I'm not here anymore. So
That's amazing. That's a great legacy to leave and also teach others like that's the goal. I
yeah,
remember it feels like 1,000 years ago, but moving from an individual contributor to a leader, that natural doer part is really hard to let go of. And
yeah,
I'm of the opinion, and there's all sorts of models, leadership coach and player coach and all that stuff. But at some point, you've got to let go of being a doer and set other people up for be able to
yeah,
produce at that high level. And that's a really hard transition, I think, for the first
it is.
6 months, a year, right?
I mean, it is, and you can see it with like with the people that I've coached, right? And I'm still coaching. Is like, oh, but I can do it so much faster than they can. Yes,
Right.
you can, because you were probably the best of the best, and this is why you were promoted. At
Yeah.
times, maybe it's not the best idea to promote your best individual contributor because they may not have the leadership potential or skills, right?
Right.
But when you become a leader, you're not a doer anymore. You're almost a thinker or a person that's delegating and making sure that everybody has their own that everybody has all of the resources available for them to shine.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you said. It's a hard thing to do because, at the beginning, it's like, oh, I can do this in an hour, and they're doing it in 2 hours. It's like, great, teach them how to do it. It's going to probably take you 10 hours of your time or maybe
Right.
15. But
Right.
when they're going to be able to do it in an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes, all of that time that you invested in them is it's gonna pay dividends back, because
100%.
then you're going to be able to do something else, and then you're going to be able to help another person and the
Right.
other and the other, and all of you are then going to grow up. And when they grow up, okay, uh yeah, that's not I meant from a
Yeah. Yeah.
child to, but like, yeah,
Right.
grow up with your skills.
Right.
And what then happens is, when you have a great team, you don't need to be there almost at all, because they're going to be so empowered. They're
Right.
going to be doing like your whole department, your whole company's jobs by themselves.
Right.
And guess what's that going to leave you as a leader? So much more time to think what you're going to do strategically. Or if you're in a corporate position like a first level manager,
Right.
well, probably you're going to get promoted because you just managed yourself or led yourself out of a job, and
Yep.
you've shown, of course, if the higher level managers are enlightened and they see this, you've shown that you can build your team, and probably somebody else is going to replace you, and you're just going to get promoted higher and then higher and higher and higher. And
Right.
this is kind of how it goes. But if you're just a doer, if you do everything, you're going to get burnout.
Yep.
Nobody on your team is going to like you, because, like what we were talking about before, people want to be productive.
Right.
And people that are leaders that are only, or managers that are only doers, they do everything because they think they need to do everything.
Right.
And then it kind of comes, why am I even here? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything. Okay, if you want to do it, do it. I'm just going to grab my paycheck from month to month. Or at the
Yeah.
worst is they're just going to leave if they're high performers, because they won't want to work for a manager like that.
Right.
So yeah,
I mean, the other thing too, I think, I agree with you 100%, by the way, is, over time, people aren't at jobs for 30, 40 years anymore. It's,
exactly.
2, 5, 8. And when you build these really strong relationships and you're known for building teams, when that layoff comes or life event comes, you've now got a fabric of people that is way stronger than,
Yeah,
Chris just coded amazingly. And okay, maybe that's, there's a piece job for that, but versus, Chris was a great leader, Buzz was a great leader. I'd love to work with them
yeah,
again. Let me help them out. Like, right.
exactly.
There's different energy people are going to have for you to help you out when you're in times of struggle. And we're all going to have those. It's not nice to think about,
Yeah,
but layoffs happen, companies go down,
yeah,
life events happen, and that network, if you treat people well, if you set them up for a win, they're going to remember that like forever.
yeah. Exactly. And like, when we're talking about, like, specifically about our brain, right? We don't remember people's just exact things that they did to us, but we remember how they felt
Right.
when we did this. And
Right.
this is the most strongest thing, emotion. And they're gonna feel, hey, Chris did great to me, like a good thing to me. Of course, I'm gonna help you back when you call me, hey Blaz, like, I'm in trouble, or whatever I need. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, I'm gonna 100% try and help you, because you've made me feel really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, in essence, if we're talking about leadership, this is what influence is.
Yeah.
It's like we gain influence, and the worst managers, like, we're gonna only listen to them while they're in the position of a manager. So, like, in my
Right.
previous few bosses, as soon as I left the company, that person I am never going to talk to again. I'm never
Right.
going to help him, and he lost any bit of influence that he had. But a great leader, like what you said,
Yeah.
is still going to have influence. They're going to call you for advice and stuff, and it just, one of the best feelings is, I just had like a call with, or like 2 weeks ago, with one of my previous clients in my previous companies. He was like, "Hey, I remember Blaj. Hey, these are the three coaches that the company is offering me." And this was my previous company.
Yeah.
"What would you advise me? Like, which one would you pick for
Nice.
me?" And I was like, "Look, pick this person, because I think it's going to be best for you."
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, he didn't ask people that were still employed there. He
Wow.
remembered what I did for him, because we had like two coaching sessions.
Nice.
And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to ask Blash. I don't kind of trust those guys anymore,
Yeah.
because they, messed up some of my stuff and stuff." Like, yeah. And we had a great conversation.
Nice.
And yeah,
Nice. That's such a great spot to be in tune. The other thing I was thinking was, as you're chatting, we were both chatting, is if you're hearing this and you're having the realization, geez, my leadership skills, I've got a blind spot here. Maybe a really strong leader, but you got a blind spot about this.
yeah,
Your employees will have all the time in the world for you if you admit, like, you know what? I've been blowing it and I didn't know this and I'm going to do something else. A lot of people see that as weakness, but if you do it right, you're going to attract so many people because they'll
Yeah.
relate to you like, oh, this person's real and they're human and they made a mistake and they're going to fix it. People have a lot of tolerance for
Yep.
people that own up to their mistakes and do something about it. Like that makes, I can have a relationship with you now
Yeah.
because I've made lots of mistakes and okay, cool. And then how can
Yeah.
I help you versus like staying, gotta be like this. So it's really never, well, maybe in the case of the example you gave, but it's
Yeah.
mostly never too late, for a leader to turn around
No.
and learn this stuff and apply like even just a little tiny dose of it.
Yeah.
It's way more
Absolutely.
relaxing too. You don't have to carry everything on your damn shoulders anymore, right?
Yeah. You can
So,
delegate, and this is like, hey, those people are going to do this, you're going to do that, and I, as a, a grown up, as a leader, I trust you that you're going to do
right,
this job perfectly and even better than I can. If you
right.
need me, I'm here. I will help you,
Yep,
but you're a grown up. You know your job. You know your job probably better than I do because you're a subject matter expert in this. I'm more of a manager or a leader in, like, let's say, in a position of a director, right?
right.
And if you need help, I'm here. My doors are always open.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, I know, like, people then shine when you give them
Oh,
this
yeah.
opportunity. They're going to do everything for you. Yeah, you
Yeah.
make a mistake. So what? It doesn't matter.
Right.
They're actually going to cover for you without
Right.
you almost even knowing
Yep.
because they will want to work for you.
Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah. It's so much more fun for sure, too.
yeah.
It's a lot
Oh,
more
yeah.
fun.
Oh, like
Even
coming
if
to
it's
work
just
every
30
day.
hours a week, you're still spending a big chunk of your precious life energy somewhere, and you might as well have a
Yeah.
little bit of fun with it. Because it's just too short at the end, right? We're not going to say, boy, I wish I
Yeah.
worked 12-hour days at a crappy job when life is over, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's everybody else. Everybody's dream is like, yeah, it's a crappy job, 12 hours a day, getting yelled at and do, yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
action
I'm being
figure we get as
sarcastic right
kids,
now. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They beat up and play. Well, hey, Blaž, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm
For
curious, we'll put
sure.
this in the show notes too, but how can
Yeah.
folks engage with you if they'd like to work with you or talk about that?
So the best way to do it is find me on LinkedIn. So you type in Blaz Marolt and you're probably going to find me.
Yep.
But and what you said in the show notes, you're probably going to put in a hyperlink to there.
Yes.
And I'm don't know, depending on when this airs, like, I'm going to have my own website as well. It's
Nice.
going to be probably be shorter, like it's going to be a long-term project, but it's blazmarolt.com. And yeah, you can find me there as well. Like,
Excellent.
stop by. I'm always looking forward to a chat. No, no strings attached. I
Nice.
always like 15, 20-minute coffee chats, exchange ideas,
Yeah,
and then see, hey, if we can work together, we can work together. If not, hey, there's another person in my network that, we can help each other in the future or anything like that.
100%. Yeah, it's a great approach.
Yeah.
So, hey, before we wrap up, I ask all of my
Yeah.
guests, what's something you're thankful for, grateful for right now?
Right now, I am so thankful for legitimately the people that I have around in my coaching program.
Nice.
Uh, and not only my personal coaching, but where I'm being coached at. So I have like a bunch of amazing people that I get so much energy out of. I can see what they're doing and we support each other, mentally, and, just have conversations that are just making me, like, really, really passionate and really, even when I have like low energy days, they just fill me up with energy. And like, I just can, like, say, hey, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to show up and I'm going to rock.
Love it.
And that's, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, congrats on that success, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
an amazing discussion. And for all of our listeners out there, hope you enjoyed this discussion. Make sure to like and subscribe and do all those magical things so you don't miss other phenomenal guests like Blaz. And Blaz, thanks so much for being on again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris,
And
for having me. I had a joy.
oh yeah, absolutely. You'll probably be on again if you'd like to. So looking forward to that.
Awesome.
And awesome guests out there. Keep leading the way. Take care and be good to yourself. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.